The boardroom erupted in laughter when CEO Marcus Blackwood pointed at the maintenance worker's shy teenage daughter and declared, "If you can fix this prototype, I'll personally fund your education." They expected her to crumble under pressure. Instead, she rolled up her sleeves and stepped forward. What happened next left every engineer speechless, but buried beneath the circuits and steel was a family secret that would shake the entire corporation and expose a truth no one saw coming. She wasn't just ordinary, she was extraordinary. The challenge the conference room at Apex Technologies buzzed with frustration. Inside the sleek headquarters of this cutting-edge automotive innovation company in Seattle, tension filled the air like electricity before a storm. The atmosphere felt more like a high-stakes competition than a routine meeting. At the center of it all sat a revolutionary electric motor prototype that had stumped the entire engineering team. This wasn't just any project. It was a groundbreaking innovation worth millions, designed to transform the automotive industry. But something had gone wrong. Despite weeks of debugging, nobody could get it to function properly. Marcus Blackwood, the imposing CEO with perfectly styled dark hair and a commanding presence, stood with arms crossed, surveying his team with obvious disappointment. His sharp gray suit matched his steely demeanor as he scanned the circle of frustrated engineers. Then his gaze fell upon James Rodriguez, the quiet maintenance supervisor who was discreetly organizing tools in the corner. James quickly looked away, hoping to avoid attention, but this only seemed to amuse the CEO. With a condescending smile, Marcus turned to address the room. "Perhaps we should consult James's daughter," he announced, gesturing toward a teenage girl standing near the doorway with a worn backpack. "What's your name, young lady?" "Elena Rodriguez," she replied softly, clutching her bag filled with textbooks, technical manuals, and a notebook held together with electrical tape. She blinked, uncertain if she'd heard correctly. Marcus chuckled. "Go ahead, Elena. If you can solve what my expert team cannot, I might just sponsor your college education." The moment of truth laughter rippled through the room, but Elena didn't join in. She glanced at her father, James, who tried to subtly shake his head, but she stepped forward anyway. Her eyes were steady, though her voice trembled slightly as she asked, "May I examine it?" "By all means," Marcus smirked. "Be my guest." Several engineers pulled out their phones, expecting to capture an embarrassing moment they could share later. But as Elena approached the motor, something remarkable happened. Her hands stopped shaking. She placed her backpack on the floor and opened it, revealing a notebook filled with intricate diagrams and calculations that made even seasoned engineers pause in amazement. "Where did she get those?" one whispered. "That looks identical to our proprietary design from 8 months ago," another murmured. Elena studied the motor for exactly 90 seconds. Then she began working with the confidence of someone who'd done this countless times before. Her fingers moved with precision as she removed a panel, located a microscopic component buried deep within the control system, and replaced it with a part from her own bag. "She carries spare components." Someone muttered in disbelief. "This isn't just any maintenance worker's daughter," another added, eyes widening. Elena stepped back and said quietly, "Try it now." The lead technician, still half smirking, pressed the activation button. The motor hummed to life. Perfectly, smoothly, flawlessly. The room fell into stunned silence. The revelation begins. Marcus's confident expression vanished, replaced by confusion and something approaching fear. Elena's hands began shaking again, but not from nervousness. The secret she guarded her entire life was about to surface, and there would be no hiding it now. The motor's steady hum echoed through the steel-walled conference room. For 10 full seconds, no one dared speak. The sound of Apex Technologies' most advanced prototype running flawlessly after weeks of failure filled the space with disbelief. Elena wiped grease from her fingers with her hoodie sleeve, her hands trembling. Not from nerves, but from the weight of what she'd just revealed. A slow clap started from the back, initiated by a young technician with tears in his eyes. Others joined, but this wasn't celebratory applause. It was a mixture of awe, confusion, and growing fear. Marcus raised his hand, stopping the clapping. "Who exactly are you?" he asked, his voice now cautious and measured. Elena hesitated, looking at her father James, who stood frozen with fear and pain evident in his eyes. She turned back to the CEO. "I'm someone who understands engines." The truth emerges. Dr. Sarah Martinez, one of the senior engineers, stepped forward eagerly. "That design in your notebook, how did you obtain it?" "That was classified information." Elena's voice dropped. "I created it." Nervous, uneven laughter broke out again. "You expect us to believe you reverse-engineered a prototype that cost us millions to develop?" Another engineer challenged. "I didn't reverse-engineer anything," Elena replied, opening her notebook to another page. "I designed this. Your version is actually based on mine." Marcus's face flushed red. He snatched the notebook and flipped through pages of equations, electrical schematics, and fluid dynamics models. Page after page of intricate original engineering work, annotated in blue ink with dates spanning 3 years. "You're claiming you designed this motor when you were 14? He asked, his voice dangerously low. "I never said I designed your motor," Elena corrected. "I said I designed mine. Your company copied it." A collective gasp swept through the room. James stepped forward, placing a protective hand on his daughter's shoulder. "We should leave," he whispered urgently. "No," Marcus said sharply. "You're not going anywhere." Elena met his gaze directly. "Are you preventing us from leaving?" Marcus stepped back, realizing the legal implications. His ego battled with his survival instincts. "Of course not, but we need to discuss this." James's voice trembled with barely contained emotion. "No, you need to listen." The hidden history. Marcus froze as James began to speak. "Years ago, there was a brilliant woman who worked here. A genius engineer. She was my wife, Elena's mother. Her name was Dr. Isabella Rodriguez." Marcus's eyes widened in recognition. "She designed the original version of this motor long before your team claimed credit for it," James continued. "When she discovered they were stealing her work and planning to expose the theft, she tried to bring it to light. The following week, she died in what was called a laboratory accident. But I never believed that story. I took the only thing I had left of her, our daughter, and disappeared." The motor's hum continued, but everything else in the room was deathly silent. Elena stood beside her father, her hands clenched into fists. Her voice hadn't wavered, her eyes hadn't flinched, but inside her chest, a storm of anger, fear, and long-buried sorrow finally cracked through the surface. Marcus stared as if he'd seen a ghost. The name Isabella Rodriguez hadn't been spoken in nearly 15 years. Not because she was forgotten, but because everyone had been ordered to forget. The official story was sealed, the files classified, the accident written off. The body never recovered. The reckoning. Dr. Martinez approached Elena and spoke quietly. "You're her daughter." Elena nodded once. A voice from the back whispered, "I remember her. She conducted one of my first training seminars. She could design propulsion systems mentally like composing music." Marcus's grip on the notebook tightened. "Why reveal this now? Why expose this here?" Elena stepped forward. "I never planned to. I didn't want to be here. You made it a mockery, challenging me to fix something your engineers couldn't. So I did, but now that I'm standing here, I won't walk away from the truth again." James gently moved his hand aside as Elena continued. "I used to believe silence protected people. But silence is what allowed her to die. If there's even one person in this room who remembers her, who wondered what really happened, they deserve to hear the truth." Dr. Robert Sterling, a senior engineer with gray hair and guilt in his eyes, slowly raised his hand. "I was here when it happened. I saw the files disappear. I watched her research get redirected. I never spoke up. And you weren't alone," James said bitterly. "I maintained these labs. I heard the whispers, saw the locked rooms, witnessed the engineers who panicked when her name was mentioned. They buried her, but they couldn't bury her intellect. They couldn't bury her legacy. They couldn't bury this. He gestured toward Elena. The full Marcus's expression twisted as his carefully constructed world began crumbling. Do you think this changes anything? He snapped. Do you think a name and some blueprints make you important? Elena smiled, but it wasn't the smile of a child seeking approval. It was the calm confidence of someone who knew they'd already won. You want to know what makes someone important? The truth. And right now, everyone in this room knows it. Even you. The silence that followed was different, not stunned or awkward, but the silence of awakening. Suddenly, Dr. Martinez removed her Apex Technologies badge and dropped it to the floor. Dr. Sterling followed, then another, and another. Marcus's eyes darted around desperately, trying to regain control. This isn't your company anymore, James said quietly. It never really was. Marcus laughed bitterly, but it sounded hollow. Do you think they'll believe you? Do you think any of this will matter? Elena opened her phone, revealing a video recording of the entire encounter from the moment Marcus had mocked her. Audio, video, confession. It already matters. The video went viral before dawn. It started as a whisper on a tech forum, then exploded across every platform like wildfire. Elena's voice, calm and unwavering, resonated with millions. Her face, a perfect blend of pain and power, appeared on screens worldwide. People replayed the moment she declared that truth mattered. They replayed Marcus Blackwood's exposure. They replayed the silence that followed. By noon, Apex Technologies was trending globally, not for innovation or success, but for a cover-up that had finally been exposed. The world suddenly wanted to know who Dr. Isabella Rodriguez was and why her name had been erased from history. Digital investigators uncovered old patent filings with her initials, redacted memos, and suspicious project terminations. Justice served inside headquarters, chaos reigned. Marcus had barricaded himself in his executive office with lawyers and advisors who urged him to issue a statement, but pride had poisoned him beyond reason. In the lobby, employees gathered around monitors. Some watched with disbelief, others with hope, a few with shame. Dr. Sterling stood quietly, clutching his now meaningless badge. Dr. Martinez typed furiously, uploading internal files to investigative journalists. James and Elena sat in the old break room, neither speaking initially. Just the hum of a vending machine and distant news anchors discussing their lives. I never imagined it would actually come to this, James finally said. Neither did I, Elena replied. I just wanted to study engineering quietly. But standing in that room, I realized something important. James looked at her expectantly. I was never just my mother's daughter. I was her voice, and someone had to speak for her. A firm knock echoed down the hallway, sharp, almost ceremonial. Federal agents in navy jackets entered the main lobby, heading straight for the executive elevator. 20 minutes later, Marcus Blackwood emerged in handcuffs. The new beginning months later, Elena stood outside the newly renamed Rodriguez Innovation Center, established with federal funding as part of the Dr. Isabella Rodriguez Memorial Initiative, a program supporting young inventors from underrepresented communities. A sleek car pulled up, and out stepped an elegant woman with silver hair and an iron posture. It was Dr. Maria Rodriguez, Elena's grandmother and Isabella's mother, who had spent years in silence, believing justice would never come. Elena, she said, her voice trembling. They had never met in person, only through letters and distant memories shared by others. But in that instant, recognition flowed between them like electricity. I preserved everything, Maria whispered through tears. Every article, every photograph, every note your mother wrote. I was waiting for this day, even when I thought it would never arrive. Elena took her hand, feeling decades of pain and hope flow between their fingers. For the first time, she wasn't standing alone. She was standing with her legacy. A man approached in a crisp suit, introducing himself as Dr. David Kim, director of the newly formed Department of Scientific Ethics. He offered Elena a folder containing a letter signed by multiple senators, establishing the Rodriguez Program, a federal initiative to fund, support, and protect young inventors. That evening, Elena stood on a quiet stage in a community center, children sitting with wide eyes as she lifted her violin. The lights dimmed and silence fell. Then came the first note, soft and fragile, but growing rich and soaring, filling every corner of the room. It wasn't just music. It was memory. It was truth. It was every step her mother had taken, every injustice endured, every victory earned, every tear shed. When she finished, no one applauded. They simply sat in breathless silence, transformed. Outside, a digital billboard illuminated the city's skyline with a single image. A mother and daughter standing side by side, with the words, "Truth cannot stay buried forever," glowing beneath them. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and become a part of our Everyday Life Stories community. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. We love hearing from our amazing viewers around the world.